Now, we're doing a lot, as you know, about traffic and different issues. We're going to be talking to a bus driver just after 11 o'clock about bus stops and various matters. Killian Mangan is a game designer from Waterford, interested in urban design, accessibility, climate and other matters. He ran as an independent local elections. Good morning, Killian.
Good morning, Damien. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. I think the signal should be okay. Hopefully it'll be all right. You have written an article for the Journal and different articles in the past about solving Waterford's traffic problems. And I had a look at the article. Excellent article in terms of getting people thinking about this thing. What's your main point, please? The traffic congestion in a city like Waterford is not normal.
Yeah, exactly, Damien. So the point I was trying to make with the article is that we should not accept how bad the traffic is in Waterford. And we need to also look at the best case of how to actually improve traffic, right? The way things work in a lot of other cities all across Europe, especially Western Europe, is traffic is actually actively reduced. Traffic levels is reduced by giving people more choice and freedom of which mode of travel they want to use. So while in Waterford the conversation's been focused mostly on doing pedestrianisation or building just one more lane of traffic or something like that, right? Which ultimately makes our city a kind of worse place to exist in. What I'm trying to say is that we need to actually give people more choice, more freedom to choose how they want to travel. So Waterford's like, I've lived in a few different places over the last couple of years, and I never really felt any need to drive personally, right? I could always just cycle somewhere with safe and segregated bike paths, or I could use good public transport. This is the only place I've been where I actually feel like I kind of need to drive, and I think there's a lot of people like me on the roads driving, even though they'd prefer not to drive if they had more choices, right? So the main choice is better public transport, as well as having safe and segregated bike paths, so we have an actual choice of how we want to get from A to B.
How do we get to that space, though? Because we had various people from the council, including Gabriel Hines on and others, talking about this, and we have very narrow streets. I know a lot of other cities have narrow streets as well, and it'd be great just to flick a switch and to get to that stage where people wouldn't be discommoded in the transition. Now, Bus Éireann are announcing various different advancements in the Bus Connect system in January, and there'll be some park and ride facilities. But to put buses onto the roads when the cars are blocking it up and the buses are going to become part of that problem, it's a hard one to really, I suppose, get to that stage, Killian.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, like, it's not easy you can't fix public transport just by just by blinking and wanting it to happen, right? But the main thing you need actual public investment. So you mentioned, Damien, the Bus Connects plan. That is incredibly unambitious, right? Waterford will go from having one of the worst public transport systems for a city its size in Western Europe to still having one of the worst public transport systems for a city its size in Western Europe. What we do is we'll be increasing the number of bus routes from 5 bus routes to 6 or 7 bus routes, really. When, for example, during the local and general election, I was highlighting the German city, similar population to us of, I don't speak German, but Dessau-Rosslau. And basically this city, or this kind of urban area, it had actually 2 tram lines, and it had up to 12 bus routes. And many of those bus routes were actually 24/7. So they had loads of night bus routes as well. Whereas we're going from having 5 bus routes to having 6 or 7 bus routes with a frequency of 15 to 30 minutes. That's just not good enough for anyone to actually move people out of cars, which would actually reduce the traffic. Like, the way you reduce the traffic is by giving like proper state public investment to build good public transport in the main routes, right? As you said, Damien, I know we can't send a bus down every little back street, but it's about basically reducing and removing the congestion on the major routes, you know. And then for smaller roads, what you do is you have bike and pedestrian priority, and that kind of fills in the gaps between a kind of public transport network.
Schools, then, the way Waterford developed over the years with so many schools in the city centre and the lack of options out towards, we'd say, the airport. Like, if they built a big secondary school out that way, and imagine if they put in a Lewis line, for example, out there coming back into the city, wouldn't it be just brilliant?
Yeah, no, like it would be transformative to have any tram line in Waterford, right? Like I said, there's like during the election, I came up with like 10 different cities the size of Waterford in France and Germany which have trams. And as somebody else pointed out on Reddit when I posted it at the time a year ago, that the smallest city with a tram line has only 13,000 people. So it's less than a quarter the size of Waterford city. And if they can have a tram in Austria with that tiny city or tiny town even, that's just a bit bigger than Tremor, then surely we could have at least one in Waterford. Like what I was saying before was the kind of main urban areas is going down the Cork Road onto the Quay and then out the Dunmore Road. And that would actually catch most of the kind of suburban areas, which actually, just kind of on that point as well, Damien, that is a big problem. Our planners have focused on learning the worst lessons from the States, from America, where they have one area for people to live in, then far away one area for people to socialize in, and then far away one area for people to work in. And that means that you have to have lots of unnecessary travel, lots of time spent commuting in traffic in kind of space inefficient cars. So what we also need to focus on is learning some of the best lessons from kind of really kind of nice, beautiful cities all across Europe, where they actually have kind of medium density mixed use spaces where you have maybe apartments, houses, shops, offices, all in the same area. So you aren't forced to wait in traffic for half an hour every day or an hour every day. And that would make everyone's lives better and also reduce the traffic.
And people waiting in cars and the frustration of that, and it's not good for one's mental or physical health. It's not good for the environment either.
No, of course, yeah, and that's where you can see those two things being linked, right? Where people a lot of environmental people might focus on just reducing emissions or air pollution, but the thing is, a lot of these improvements will actually it gives us back more time, right? So if you're spending an hour being forced to wait in traffic every day, like half an hour to work, half an hour back from work, plus maybe going to the shops, that's time that you've lost. That's time that you don't have spending with family, spending with friends, maybe working, doing some side projects. So imagine if you had good, fast and frequent, efficient public transport, or you could get from A to B way cheaper, way more quickly, with way less traffic. That is time that we all regain in our lives so we can actually have a better quality of life. That's kind of ultimately what it should go down to.
Paddy has texted in, imagine being out on a bike today. Come on, get a grip, OMG. But if you didn't want to go on a bike today, you'd be able to use a proper bus service, which would be great.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm sure that you're saying there's going to be a bus driver on talking later. I'm sure one thing that will come up is the lack of having proper bus shelters.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially in weather like this, and yeah, like I've cycled out more in weather like this before. It's definitely not fun, but it's all about having the choice, having the freedom.
Killian, you can read your article online. Good to talk to you again. Mind yourself. Take care. Have a good day.
Thanks, Damien. You too.
See you, Killian. All the very best there. Killian Mangan, who has an interest in design and urban planning and different matters. Yeah, we're going to continue to do a series on this throughout the next few weeks and into January as well.